How's it going, everybody? I'm Gary. I'm a voice actor, I'm a gamer, and I'm a PhD in AI speech technology. So it's been a while, huh? The AI voiceover strike is over, and quite a few voice actors aren't exactly happy with the results. And I mean, if you've been paying attention to the news, you should know that AI is coming for us all. Now, I may be an AI engineer, but believe it or not, I do care about voice acting. I personally enjoy voice acting, and I don't want to see voice acting become dominated by AI. But if the recent voiceover strike has taught us anything, it's that voice actors really need to change their strategy if they want to win against AI. Turns out, strikes and social movements just make the companies want to replace the workers even faster. And that's why I'm making this video. Because if you want to win against AI, you can't just rely on lawyers and businessmen. You're going to need the help of someone who actually knows the realities of the AI industry. So I'm going to be sharing with you all strategies that voice actors can use to beat AI. Gamers and animation fans, you guys might want to pay attention too, because this has stuff to do with you. Now, before we talk about what to do, let's talk about what not to do. And the number one thing not to do is make false arguments about AI. I mean, obviously. However, I do understand that these arguments usually come from a place of ignorance and not maliciousness or misinformation. After all, I can't expect voice actors to be experts on AI. So to help y'all with that, we're going to need to start with a science lesson, a crash course on what AI even is, so you know what to argue and, more importantly, what not to argue. So a couple decades ago, a problem-solving algorithm started gaining a lot of popularity among computer scientists. This algorithm goes by a bunch of different names, and there are a whole bunch of different implementations, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to call them neural networks. Now, these neural networks are really powerful algorithms, but it's also a mistake to call them new technology, because we've known about these algorithms for quite a while now. The reason why we never used them was because up until this point, our computers were just never good enough. It's only due to recent advancements in computation, especially things like GPUs, that allowed us to even use these algorithms in the first place. It's not a mistake that NVIDIA's stock shot up in the past several years. Now, these neural networks come with a very interesting mathematical proof, kind of like the rules that these networks follow, and it's probably the scariest use of mathematics you will ever see. It's called the Universal Approximation Theorem, or UAT for short. Now, don't get confused here, this is not standard English, this is the language of math, and in math language, theorem or theory doesn't mean idea, it means fact. And approximation in this context doesn't mean close enough, it actually means perfect or exact. It's weird math stuff. So if we wanted to rename this theorem in layman's terms, we would call it the AI can perfectly solve every problem ever, and that's a fact. Fact. And that is exactly what the UAT mathematically proves. It's a fact, and this is what everyone who wants to talk about AI needs to understand. Because artists and actors love to claim that art has human soul, and that can't be replicated by AI. But according to the UAT, if I ask, hey, AI, make a voice acting robot that is better and has more human soul than Matt Mercer, Yuri Lowenthal, and Crispin Freeman combined, it can do it, and it can do it perfectly. And that's a fact. And this is why I always warn against arguments like AI will never be as good as humans, because that is mathematically, provably wrong. And this is the existential problem that is surrounding the field of AI. Because the implication of the UAT is that AI is better at being a human than you are. And that is not debatable. So the first thing you need to do is wrap your head around that, and then come to the conclusion that, well, that's it, it's over for us human meatbags, right? Well, I mean, not exactly. Because this hopefully led you to another question, which is, if AI can solve everything, why hasn't it done it yet? And that question is the real question that encompasses the AI industry. You see, the Universal Approximation Theorem is a very special type of theorem in mathematics. It's called an existence theorem. And existence theorems have a critical weakness. What existence theorems do is it takes a problem and tells you that there exists a solution, hence existence theorem. But what an existence theorem doesn't do is tell us how to get that solution. Let's put this as a metaphor. Let's say you have a disease. Now, your doctor tells you that the cure exists, and that makes you happy. because of course you can cure your disease. But then your doctor says in order to get that cure, we need to go to Jupiter. Well, I take it back, you're not so happy, because it doesn't matter if the cure exists if you can't access it. And that idea is where the theory of AI ends and the business of AI begins. Because going back to the voice acting machine example, we may be able to create the perfect voice actor using AI, but nobody's going to use it if it takes 100 terabytes to install or requires the program to run for, let's say, 10 years. It's perfect, but it's not practical. And that's where the AI engineers come in. Most people think AI engineers develop these deep, interesting algorithms or try to solve the methods of the human brain. Yeah, in reality, that's like less than 1% of the industry. Most AI engineers just take an existing algorithm that already works and just tries to make it easier to use. And that's why most AI companies focus on one problem and only one problem at a time. Companies like Monday.com, which focus entirely on corporate HR, or Grammarly, which focuses entirely on correcting grammar mistakes in business emails. It's really only the massive tech conglomerates like Google that can monopolize certain solutions to certain problems. So they don't need to worry about new problems. They can just buy the startups later. Also, these massive companies are the only ones who really have the capital to develop AI just for the sake of research. Things like the Google VO. And yes, while the VO is cool and kinda is the face of AI at the moment, these kinds of technology are mostly developed for marketing purposes. It looks technologically advanced, but the VO was functionally designed without a concrete application in mind. And to this day, the VO still doesn't really have an application, outside of things that may have to do with the number 34. But for the smaller, more practical companies trying to make a profit off of solving some real-world problem, engineers are expensive. A starting salary for an AI engineer is probably 6 figures minimum. Hire a team of 10 engineers to work on your problem and you're down $1 million a year. And it takes a few years to get your solution and your software to a marketable state. That is to say that AI solutions seem to pop up everywhere, but in reality, they only pop up in markets that are 100% guaranteed to make money. And from here, it should be pretty obvious how to defeat AI. Just make it so the AI can't make money. Because the only way that has ever worked to fight against any sort of technology is to make the customer buy from you and not the AI. After all, if the customer prefers to buy from the AI, no amount of striking, protesting, or legislation is going to stop it. And even if you can stop it legally in the US or maybe Europe, good luck trying to get the other side of the world to follow the same rules. Of course, that's how markets work, especially AI markets that have the potential to generate billions of dollars. And in the arts, where the product is based almost entirely on opinion, it's more important than anything to win the favor of the customers. Which means if you want video games to keep human voice actors, you gotta win over the gamers. It doesn't really take a business expert to understand that if the customers buy from you, you make money. And that's all there really is to it. So it turns out after all that talk about technology, the solution has nothing to do with technology. It's all market economics. You just win over the favor of the fans and the gamers. But by the way, that's gonna be a pretty uphill battle. Because after the strike blowing up and the whole Genshin Impact situation, among other things, gamers don't exactly have the best opinion of us right now. In fact, here are a few examples of what the gamers think of us.
What game companies need to do, I would be thinking about how can I get AI in my games as fast as possible so I can stop paying these psychotic freaks that are sitting around on Twitter trying to fuck up my product.
Nobody's gonna feel sorry for you when you're eventually replaced by other people who are not obnoxious, or you're replaced by AI.
They're just trying to strong arm them into becoming a union member. I hope to God if people still withhold their work, they just get replaced at this point, because what's the fucking point?
Now, I know you voice actors might not like the people that I just put on the screen. These guys are representatives of the grungy or vulgar or more male-dominated space of video games. These are the guys who like big swords and guns and buff dudes running off into war and sexy girls in bikinis and short skirts. And if you don't like them or don't want to think of them as your main audience, I can't force you to try to relate to them. I get it, it's difficult to relate to people that you don't agree with, but I am just gonna remind you guys that these are the gamers that chose not to buy Forspoken, and that game flopped. They chose not to buy Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Shadows, and now Ubisoft is selling a fourth of their company to Tencent. They chose not to buy Concord, and they shut that game down in under a month. Maybe they're they're a bigger percentage of the audience than you originally thought. And maybe it's time that we tried to understand what they like and why they like it instead of immediately branding them as evil. Because as artists, it's our job to empathize with others, right? Now, let's also take a moment to just talk about legislation. I said earlier in passing that legislation doesn't really help, but that's because we usually view legislation from a privacy and limitations point of view. Don't let the AI use our data and we'll stop it from improving, that kind of approach. For example, here's the argument that voice actor Sam Witwer made during the voiceover strike.
Let's say we actors were on the assembly line assembling automobiles, and then suddenly the employer goes, we're going to replace you with robots. But it's a little different for us, because as we walk out the door, they're going, oh, by the way, before you leave, we need to remove your arms and legs. And we go, well, wait a second, hold on, I kind of need my arms and legs because you just fired me. I need to get jobs elsewhere, and I use my hands and I use my legs to get the, no, we need your arms and legs. Well, why do you need our arms and legs? To be grafted onto the robots, because the robots don't work without your arms and legs. Well, it sounds like your robots suck.
Now, I certainly understand why he made that argument, but any AI engineer who's worked in the field for more than a couple years knows that that argument is almost entirely irrelevant to the development of AI. Because, to address his argument, why the heck would I use his arms and legs when I can develop robotic arms and legs that are 10 times stronger, 10 times faster, and 10 times better? And once the engineers decide to develop and finish the AI voiceover machine, you'd be lucky if they even cared about your data at all. Because by that time, it'll be so much better than you, your data would hold it back. It happens every single time. But that doesn't mean legislation won't help. What the AI industry is a hyper-focused problem-solving market, which means the way to fight is simply to provide information to the market. If you want my personal opinion, all we need is a really simple law. If a product is made with generative AI, just require made with Gen AI on the box. I'll leave it to the lawyers to decide what that means because God knows no one listens to the engineers. But in order for this legislation to be successful, it also requires that the audience like us enough where they will refuse to buy anything with AI in it. But hey, at least we have an advantage there. There are enough studies that show that humans don't like AI when they know they're working with an AI. Humans are just biased like that. But once again, if you want to win, you gotta win the gamers. Now for all you gamers out there and animation fans, you guys just need to buy the games you want to buy and watch the shows you want to watch. If there's someone you want to support, just say so and buy their stuff. You don't need me to tell you that. But I will say this, never let anyone tell you what you're supposed to like. So yeah, that's all I really have to say. But if you do want to support me, just check out Octopath Traveler 0. I really hope you guys enjoy the game, and if you do, just let them know that you want to see me in other games too.
I must atone for my sins, even if it costs me my very life!
Thanks so much for watching, wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I will see you all next time.